الرحيم. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يداه، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه، ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيما، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي. أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا، وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى، تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله، ولا شبيه يشاكله، ولا ظهير يعاضده. قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه، ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني. فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه، ولا يغلق بابه، ولا يرد سائله، ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين، ويرفع المستضعفين، ويضع المستكبرين، ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاصم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها، وترجف الأرض وعمارها، وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على صبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي، حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا، يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغناه. اللهم المم به شعثنا واشعب به صدعنا وارتق به فتقنا وكثر به قلتنا وأعزز به ذلتنا وأغن به عائلنا واقض به عن مغرمنا واجبر به فقرنا وسد به خلتنا ويسر به عسرنا وبيض به وجوهنا وفك به أسرنا وأنجح به طلبتنا وأنجز به مواعيدنا واستجب به دعوتنا وأعطنا به سؤلنا وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله وبضر تكشفه ونصر تعزه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صل على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you all for joining Al-Hussain Youth live stream for this year's Ramadan lecture. We're very grateful to have Sheikh Ahmad Bazzi this year. This will be our last lecture of the series. Just a few notes before we begin. We kindly ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel Hussain Youth, as well as follow us on Instagram page at Hussain Youth to stay up to date on all latest events. Finally, we ask you to email us at youthalhussain@gmail.com your questions right now, as we will be having a question session today after the lecture. And with that, please welcome Sheikh Ahmad Bazzi with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Ahsant, may Allah bless you and accept your amal, Habib. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم يا كريم. May Allah accept your amal, my brothers and sisters, accept your salat, accept your fasting. And on these last few days of Shahr Ramadan, and maybe the last days that we are together, my brothers and sisters, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who win in this month and not make us from the losers of this month. And we said the losers in this month are the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive their sins. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the winners and not the losers. Bihaqqi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Today, my brothers and sisters, we are going to discuss a topic linked to some of the topics that we've been discussing for the last few days in light of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And that topic, my brothers and sisters, is just as contentious in one way or another in the eyes of some, controversial, as the persona of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, of the character of the individual named Ali. We said Imam Ali alayhi salam, around this individual named Ali ibn Abi Talib, a lot of conflict came about. He became the divisive factor between two sects and two groups. He became that line that separated between groups in Islam, and many different groups sprouted, all surrounding this one individual named Ali ibn Abi Talib. For example, you have the Shia and the Sunnah, fine. But also amongst them, specifically amongst the Shias, you had those that came about and said that Ali alayhi salam was more important than Rasulullah, and some that took it a step forward and said that Ali himself was God. On the other end, you had some that tried their utmost best to diminish from the value of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then you had some that hated Ali ibn Abi Talib outwardly or inwardly, and we call them al-Nawasib. And then you had al-Khawarij that stood up against any person that sat essentially on the pulpit of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they claimed that Allah is the only guardian, the only authority, and no other human is to take authority. So on this individual named Ali, you have a wide spectrum of opinions. That is in terms of who he was. But when you come to talk about this thing called love for Ali, love for Ahl al-Bayt, the topic becomes much more contentious and in many situations much more aggressive. Because respecting the person doesn't necessarily mean that you love them to the point where you're obeying them, to the point where every single time you hear their name, you have a response, an emotional response, to the point where your actions are governed by this thing called love. And ultimately, because we respond to individuals, whether they are in front of us or individuals of the past, with emotions, we have an emotional response to them. And love being the most intense emotional response to an individual, and its counterpart being hate, you find that when it comes to the love of Ali ibn Abi Talib, it seems that this thing called love for Ali ibn Abi Talib is the defining factor, is that contentious, divisive factor, issue that the Muslimin have really differed upon. Yani the one that respected him respects him, sure. But does he love him? Like, what do the riwayat say about the love of Ali ibn Abi Talib? What do the riwayat say about those who hate Ali ibn Abi Talib? What does our religion teach us about love as a concept, and specifically love for this individual? Before we delve into the love of Ali alayhi salam, what it means, the riwayat, and ultimately how important or crucial it is in our religion, you have the right to ask a question. And that question is, Ahmad, what's the point? From the beginning, you told us that the discussions that we are going to be having are practical. We're going to leave with something practical, something to act upon, whether it was one day picking a book that you're going to read, another day learning your ahkam so you know your sawm, your fasting is accepted, other days, other practical advice that we left the lecture with. What is this topic going to help us with? How is it going to help us on a practical level? The answer is, my brothers and sisters, before we even delve into the topic, yes, let's understand the importance of the topic itself on a practical level. The answer is, from love, if we are ordered to love this individual named Ali, and we actually have that love, from love comes belief, or rather a prerequisite for love is belief of some sort. Belief that this individual is worth my love, that this individual deserves my love, that this individual occupies a status that deserves for me to devote myself to him. And so, because belief is a prerequisite for love, and today we're going to see if we have to love this individual and in what way and what that love means. If we arrive at that prerequisite and we have that prerequisite, then there's another step that comes about. There's another level, and that is action. For every action is based on belief. If you acquire belief truly, then you will have an action that comes from that belief or sprouts from that belief. Our belief is the source of every single action we do. Every action you do comes from belief. Some sort of belief, some sort of ideology that you have. Doesn't necessarily have to be religious. I'll give you an example. After iftar, you'll eat whatever, you'll pray, you'll do whatever you have to do, read dua, and then you might sit down and play a video game, right? You might sit down and watch a movie. Tell me, well, where's the belief behind that? Well, simply put, you have a belief that video games are entertaining. You have a belief that video games are not harmful to you. Maybe someone else might believe that they're harmful to you. Maybe your parents might tell you don't play video games because they're harmful to you, but you don't believe that, and so you play video games. You believe that video games are permissible in your religion, and so it's okay to play them. Ultimately, what drives you, what pushes you towards an action, even something as simple as a video game, is a belief. And so if you establish love for this individual, you ultimately establish belief. And from belief, you establish actions. You bring about, rather, actions into the real world. And so this discussion, my brothers and sisters, the discussion about the love for Amir al-Mu'mineen ultimately doesn't just bring about one mode of action. Rather, it brings about a program, a protocol, a group of actions, a way of life ultimately. And so, my brothers and sisters, we're going to discuss this love. We're going to try to understand this love, and we're going to ask simple questions about this love for Ali ibn Abi Talib, because ultimately we all love Ali ibn Abi Talib. We all love Imam Ali alayhi salam. But some of us may not understand what that love entails, what that love means, where that love comes from. Where that love comes from, yes. And we will look into it today, inshallah ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When we go to the riwayat, we find that there is special care and special attention given to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, specifically Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhis salam, and specifically to the love of this individual named Ali, loving Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salamullah. You find the riwayat, for example, say, Ya Ali, oh Ali, Rasulullah speaking to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali, only the mu'min loves you, and only the munafiq, the hypocrite, hates you, for example. Another example is Hubbu Ali Junnah. The love of Ali alayhi salam, if I want to loosely translate it, is either a gift, or the love of Ali alayhi salam is a treasure, right? And it will bring us to heaven, and many of the like. And riwayat that are specifically ordering us to love Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And this order, my brothers and sisters, has its place also in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the famous ayah, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. Say to the people, Ya Rasulullah, I don't ask for anything. Anything. I don't ask for anything as a compensation for the message, as a reward for the message, for my 23 years of proclaiming what Allah Ta'ala has ordered me to proclaim and spread this message. I don't have any reward that I ask for, or any compensation that I ask for, except one thing. And that is al-mawaddah for al-qurba. So who's al-qurba? The family. What's mawaddah? We'll get to that in a second. Everything that I've done, everything that I've given, all I want in return is this thing called mawaddah for my family. Jami. We ask, Ya Rasulullah, what's mawaddah? Mawaddah is love accompanied by obedience. Love accompanied by obedience is what we call mawaddah. So it's the truest form, purest form of love. Jameel. So we are ordered to love them, alayhim salamullah, ordered to love Amir al-Mu'mineen. Now we have a question. And this is going to be a question that I want you to think about. And it's these questions, these hard questions that we must ask for us to truly understand what we're dealing with and what Allah Ta'ala truly wants from us. The question is this: can you order someone to love someone else? Can I order you to love someone? I can order you to obey someone, fine. But love someone, to have an emotional response towards someone, to hate someone, I can tell you to stay away from someone. But can I order you to love someone? Can I order you to bring about an emotional response or connect with someone emotionally? Can I order that from you? Can a father order his daughter to love this person that he wants her to marry? Can a mother order her son to love the daughter, or the girl that she picked out for him? Can I order my brother to love my best friend, for example? I can order them to obey. I can order this boy to be a good husband, or this girl to be a good wife, my brother to be a good friend towards my friend. Fine. I can order these things because they're actions. But can I order emotion? Can I order an emotional response? The answer is, frankly, if you think about it, no, you can't. Experimentally, no, you can't. How many times have we seen arranged marriages that go on for a year, 2 years, 3 years, for example, and they fall apart? Why? Because the girl was forced to marry the man, and she was ordered to love the man. Obviously, she doesn't love the guy. Like, she doesn't want to be with him. So she put up with it 1, 2, 3 years, and she walked up. And she was forced. And if she was actually forced to love him, the marriage would have been problematic in the beginning. But regardless, she didn't love him. She didn't love him. So you can't order an emotional response. And Allah Ta'ala outlines this. Allah Ta'ala himself outlines this in the Quran. He outlines this in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he's speaking about a man marrying more than one wife, which we believe is okay in Islam, he says this: فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدَةً. O men, you are allowed to marry up to 4 wives. And then here, he says, and if you fear that you cannot be just with them all, then just one. Then you must marry only one woman. Like, what does justice mean here? Be just with them, giving them their rights at the very least. Bare bones is just to give them their rights as your wives. As you know, a man has a right in marriage, and women have their rights in marriage as well. Men have rights, and women have rights in marriage. Giving them their rights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them in the marriage. If you can't give them all their rights, this is bare bones, yani. If there's more to it, then there's more to it. I'm giving you the base. If you can't give them their bare rights, then just one. Then just one wife. Justice. Jameel. Then in another ayah, look what Allah Ta'ala says. He says, وَلَن تَسْتَطِيعُوا أَن تَعْدِلُوا بَيْنَ النِّسَاءِ وَلَوْ حَرَصْتُمْ. He says, and you will not be able to be just. You will not be able to be just amongst your women, your wives, even if you tried. فَلَا تَمِيلُوا كُلَّ الْمَيْلِ. So don't lean towards one, or don't lean too far, essentially. Don't transgress. Pretty much. That's what Allah Ta'ala is trying to say. طيب. In the beginning, Allah Ta'ala is saying, marry, but if you can't be just, then marry only one. Then Allah Ta'ala in another ayah says, you're not going to be able to be just at all. Like, what is he saying? He's contradicting himself here. No. The first one, Allah Ta'ala is talking about justice in terms of their rights. The second one is justice in terms of love. And he says, you will not be able to control your love and be just when it comes to how you feel. You may love one wife more than another wife. You might have 4 sons. You love one son more than the rest. That's just emotional response that you can't control. And Allah Ta'ala is saying you can't be just here. Not because you're inherently bad or evil. No, it's just you're unable to. You can't control your emotions. You will not be able to be just with your emotions. So here we established something, me and you. Let's think. We established something. We established that you can't order someone to be just with their emotions, because your emotions are not under your control for the most part. For the most part, your emotions are not really under your control. So how is it that we are asked and ordered to love Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, to love Ali ibn Abi Talib? How do you order someone to love someone else? That's very weird. And we just established that it's almost impossible to do so unless, and here's the exception, unless it's natural for a person to love that individual. For example, is it weird and awkward if Allah Ta'ala orders a mother to care, to love her children? It's very normal. We don't find it weird. Yes, it's weird. It's weird that if I order a random woman to love a random child, yes, you'll find that weird. A random woman to love a random child. Why? Because it's unnatural. There's no connection between them. But if I order a mother to love her child, her own child, that's normal. I don't find it weird. I don't find it weird here. It's actually normal. If the love, the emotional connection between the two individuals is natural, then it becomes normal for you or for me to order or to get an order to love that individual that it's natural to love. Jameel. So we ask, then, is the love for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam something natural that we have in ourselves? Yani it's natural for us to love them? Just like the woman, the mother, is naturally in love or has natural love for her child. Say yeah. And that love is in 2 ways. One of these 2, or even both of them. Listen, one of these 2 or both of them. This is a little deep, but I want you to stay with me. The first way that our love for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is natural is that we ourselves, in ourselves, embedded within ourselves, we love morals, we love ethics, we love values. We understood good, we understood bad. We understand good qualities, we understand bad qualities. And naturally, we are inclined towards good qualities. Naturally, we are inclined towards good qualities. if you were to come in front of any person and say you have justice or oppression, what would you rather have? They could be a tyrant, but justice or oppression. Every human being will pick justice. You have generosity, stinginess. What would you rather have? Generosity. You have knowledge, you have ignorance. Knowledge. Every human being will incline towards what is good because we understand that goodness is good. Goodness is positive. Goodness is happiness. Goodness is satisfaction. So we associate these things with goodness. And naturally, we just love goodness as human beings. We are created to love goodness. Very rarely do you have someone who's created to love evil. No. Human beings embedded in ourselves, programmed into ourselves. We love goodness. Jameel. And because we love the good qualities, we are naturally inclined towards people that hold them. Can you agree? Absolutely. I have Ali and I have Muawiyah. Ali is known to be generous. Muawiyah is known to be stingy, let's say. Naturally, whether you know Ali for who he is or know Muawiyah for who he is, all I told you information about these two is one is stingy and one is generous. I get an atheist off the street, Khayyita. Pick between the two. He'll pick the generous one. Why? Not because he knows Ali bin Abi Talib, not because he read a book about Imam Ali, nor did he read a book about Muawiyah, nor did he look into history and see what happened between the two. All I told him is, this guy's name is Muawiyah, or this guy's name is Ali, this guy's name is Muawiyah. This one is generous, this one is stingy. Pick. He'll pick Ali. 10 times out of 10. Every situation. He'll pick this individual that he doesn't know, named Ali. Not because he knows Ali, not because he has anything for Ali. No, he doesn't even know Ali. Why? Because Ali has a quality that he himself loves, and that is generosity. So he picked Ali for the quality. Yes? Good. Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam. And this is consensus. Everyone believes this. Sunni, Shia. Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam had the most noble qualities. Shia and Sunnah. Everyone believes this. And non-Muslims alike, when they read about Ali bin Abi Talib, George Radak, for example, and others of his likes, when they read about Ali, they're mesmerized. And they themselves will say, yes, this individual named Ali held all of the noble qualities. Where one of them has said, if Ali was not a prophet, he surely held the qualities of prophethood. Christian man. Christian man. Jimmy. Did he hold the qualities? Yes, he did. But you're telling me, Ahmad, that we love the quality. We don't necessarily love the individual. Why? Because in the example that you gave about Ali and Muawiyah, the atheist, he loved the quality of generosity. So he picked Ali because Ali held generosity. But if the tables were turned and you put Muawiyah instead of Ali, and you said to this atheist, and you lied to him and said Muawiyah was generous, he would have just picked Muawiyah. So I'm not in love now with Ali, I'm in love with the qualities that Ali held. So there's a problem with your premise. There's a problem with what you're saying. And I'll come back and I'll say this. What you're saying is right. But the ulama, they differentiate between as-sifa, quality, and al-khuluq, identity. As-sifa, quality. Then al-khuluq, identity. What's the difference? As-sifa is something that I can carry today and let go of tomorrow. I can be generous today. Tomorrow I'm stingy. Today I'm knowledgeable. Tomorrow I'm ignorant. Today I'm good. Tomorrow I'm bad. Why? Because these were just qualities that I was holding on to. It's like I had a bag, and in that bag there was these qualities. I pick and choose. I take out and I put in. This is quality. And many people have qualities. Today he's truthful, tomorrow he's a liar. A lot of us have qualities. But then there are those that have had this quality for so long and they didn't change it to its counterpart. So they were truthful so long. They didn't change it to their counterpart, to its counterpart, lying, until that quality becomes embedded in their identity and who they are, where they are then known for that quality. Rather, that quality becomes infused with them. Rather, it becomes them. It becomes their identity. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was named as-Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful, the trustworthy. Was this a quality that he held? No. There were many people that were truthful. There were many people that were umana, that were trustworthy in Quraysh, or at least amongst the Arabs. There were. Why was Rasulullah himself named that name? Because it wasn't a quality, it was a khuluq, it was an identity. It was an identity that he had. Jameel, now stay with me. If the quality becomes infused with a person's identity, with a person's person, with your persona, with your character, with you and the quality become one and the same. And I love the quality, and it's the same as the individual that embodies those qualities, then I love the individual. Then I love the individual, then I love the person. And so naturally, I will love a person that holds those qualities as their identity. So it's natural then for the human being that is in love with goodness to love those that embody goodness. Their identity is goodness. Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. That's one way to understand how it's natural for us to love Ahlul Bayt. But then there's another piece there. No. You go deeper. And this is deep. Let us go deeper. Me and you, my brothers and sisters, we're going to go deep. What if I told you that there are some ahadith that allude to the idea that the specific love for individuals named Ali, Hassan, Hussain, up until Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman, these individuals by name, their character, themselves, their love is embedded into our heart, into our being. Yes, there are hadith that allude to this idea. Look at this riwayah. Stay with me. عن علي بن إبراهيم عن علي بن الحسين قال إن الله عز وجل خلق النبيين من طينة عليين. He says Allah Ta'ala created the prophets from the clay of a place in Jannah called Alliyin. So essentially from the clay of Jannah. قلوبهم وأبدانهم. قلوبهم وأبدانهم. Their hearts and their bodies. وخلق قلوب المؤمنين من تلك الطينة. And Allah has created the hearts of the mu'min from that same clay. Stay with me. Let's keep drawing connections. عن أبي بصير عن أبي جعفر عليه السلام قال إنا وشيعتنا خلقنا من طينة عليين. He says, us and our Shia were created from that same clay of Alliyin. Let's keep going. قال الصادق عليه السلام رحم الله, or it's narrated that he said, رحم الله شيعتنا خلقوا من فاضل طينتنا. May Allah have mercy on our Shias. Why? For they were created from the leftover of our clay. وَعُجِنُوا بِمَاءِ وِلَايَتِنَا. And they were mixed with the water of our wilayah. يَحْزَنُونَ لِحُزْنِنَا وَيَفْرَحُونَ لِفَرَحِنَا. They're happy for our happiness and they're sad for our sorrow. The mu'min, the Shi'i, was created from the same clay that they were created from, alayhim salam. From the leftover of their clay. And naturally, you love your source. You love where you were created from. You love your parents because they are your source. You love your parents because they were your source. Even if you don't know them. Even if you don't know them. Let's say you were separated from your parents at birth. 30 years down the line, you met your mother and father. You'd hug her like you knew her from yesterday. Because you are naturally inclined to love her. Because she's your source. Similarly, you love the land you are from. You love Canada because you are from that land. I love Lebanon because my ancestors are from Lebanon. I love Canada because I'm from Canada. The land itself, yes, the land, the actual dirt. You love it. You love it. You've never been to Lebanon in your whole life. You've never been to Iraq your whole life. You go there once, you feel you're at home. You love it. You love your source. Naturally, we love our source. And if our source, me and you, inshallah, is from the clay of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, the clay that Ahlul Bayt were created from, and naturally, we're going to love them because we're part of them. We're from the same place. We're from the same source. We're from the same tina. That love, my brothers and sisters, for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, is two. Love of the qualities, sure. But according to some of the riwayat, it's embedded in your heart. It's like programmed into you to love them alayhim salam. Bring about that love. If you bring about that love, your belief in them becomes strong, and then your actions begin to reflect that belief. If you follow that equation, simple equation, love, belief, actions. If you follow that equation, you're on the road to success. And now we understand something. We understand the words of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, where it's narrated that he said, وَمَا الدِّينِ إِلَّا الْحُبِّ. And religion is but love. Religion is just love. Religion is just love. وَمَا الدِّينِ. The religion is nothing but love. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Thank you, Sheikh Ahmad Bazzi, for that wonderful lecture. We are now going to open the floor for questions. So if any of you are watching on YouTube, if you can please drop your questions in the chat box. There's 2 questions so far. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to add. Just give people a few seconds just to see if there are any questions.
I just want to let you guys know, my brothers and sisters, that I have another lecture at 7:45. So in about 13 minutes or so. Okay. So I might have to leave maybe a few minutes before. So ask your questions. But if I'm not able to get to your questions today, then maybe in the upcoming days, if there are any lectures after this, I believe there is one.
Okay. So we have one question about, does Islam oppose modern day science?
So sorry, if you just let me just finish what I was saying, Habibi.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay,
sorry.
No problem. So we have one more day. If I don't get to your question specifically today, I'll get to it tomorrow, inshallah. Maybe our microphones, you weren't hearing what I was saying, or I wasn't hearing what you were saying, Habib. I apologize for that. Sorry, what was
no problem? I apologize. Yeah. So if any of you have questions that are unanswered, you can also email alhussainyouth@gmail.com if you have any questions, and we can forward it to Sheikh Ahmad Bazzi. So we have a question about, does Islam oppose modern day science?
Not at all. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Rather, Islam and science don't go against each other. Rather, they complement each other, because ultimately, they're both trying to tell us about the reality that we live in. So science is trying to tell us about the reality of the universe, and Islam is coming to tell us about the reality of the universe, right? The reality of the world around us. So they're both telling us the same thing. They're both more or less doing the same thing for us. Now, different methods, yes. The scientific method is one as opposed to the religious method. Sure, okay? But they're ultimately doing the same thing for us. Now, when science goes against something that we know to be 100% true in our religion, like, for example, the existence of God, then that's when we say, science, there's a mistake somewhere. Go find your mistake and fix it. For we know 100% that Allah, God, has to exist, must exist. And the proofs that we have for this are logical, philosophical, and obviously in our books, but first and foremost, logical and philosophical. And the difference ultimately between religion and science is that religion is set in stone. Religion is very clear on what its stances are. As opposed to science, no, things are changing every day. Even things that we thought to be 100% maybe 300, 400 years ago are not 100% today. Rather, they're up in the air or debunked and disproven altogether. And ultimately, any true scientist knows and understands that there isn't one theory or one idea out there that is not up for question. Yes, we have laws. Laws are generally ideas or concepts that they're proven to a point where you can't deny. Sure. But there are other ideas out there that no. And part of the scientific method is to question. Part of the scientific method is to question this idea that's being proposed, this theory, this hypothesis that's being proposed. And so that's why you find a lot of scientists go against each other on many issues, many issues. Issues that me and you think are 100% set in stone. Scientists go against each other on some of them. So science and religion don't go against each other, rather they complement each other. If science goes against an idea that is 100% set in stone in religion, then we come back and we say, science, you made a mistake somewhere. That's not a problem. It's not wrong. Let's try and find the mistake together. But 100% it's set in stone that this is not right.
Sounds good. There's another person in the chat that's asking, can you elaborate more or explain more what is Sahifat al-Sajadiyya wa Ahkam?
Sahifa al-Sajadiyya is a dua compilation that Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam made, or Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam essentially recited. It was later compiled into a book, or he himself compiled it into a book. I'm not sure how the actual scripture came about, but they are essentially a compilation of the du'as of Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam. Reason why that Imam al-Sajjad had this compilation as opposed to some of the other imams is because Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam at his time, he was under house arrest, or he was under a lot of scrutiny and under the supervision of the Umayyad Khalifa at the time. And so he wasn't able to preach Islam. The only way that he was able to preach was through dua. And so you find in Sahifa al-Sajadiyya, a lot of the religious ideas that me and you preach on in lectures or read in books and things like that me and you hear, they're actually embedded in the du'as themselves. Okay? So a lot of the ideas that the Imam alayhi salam would have preached are actually in the form of dua, so that the people can learn their religion through the du'as of the Imam. And ultimately the Imam is doing dua, and the Abbasid or the Umayyad Khalifa is not going to stop him from reciting dua, right? And may not have known that the Imam alayhi salam was preaching through dua. So it was a method that the Imam alayhi salam preached to the people in the form of dua. That's why Sahif al-Sajadiyya is so important.
Okay, so we have one person who's asking, why is it wrong to fast on Eid? And he's just curious why. Why is it wrong? Why can't people fast on Eid?
No problem. The reason why is because the riwayat are very clear that it's haram to fast on Eid. Just the same way the riwayat are very clear that you can't pray Salat al-Dhuhr as 6 rak'at or 2 rak'at, and you have to pray as 4 rak'at. We call this Amr Tawqifi. Amr Tawqifi essentially means that the riwayah was clear on this issue. We may know why, we may not necessarily know exactly the reason why, the wisdom behind it. But Allah Ta'ala has ordered us to do it in this way, not this way. So we do it in the way that Allah Ta'ala ordered it. So we do tawqif, where we essentially stop and say, this is what Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala ordered us to do and ordered us not to do. So when it comes to fasting on the day of Eid, there is a clear riwayat that indicate that we're not allowed to be fasting on Eid. And in the same way that Salat al-Dhuhr is 4 rak'at and Salat al-Maghrib is 3, you're not allowed to fast on Eid. And that same, the same logic.
And there's another question about prayer in an airplane. So how does one offer salat prayer while somebody's traveling on an airplane?
Well, the way I generally do it is actually I get up and pray. I ask the flight attendant, do you mind if I pray in the little kitchenette that they'll have? Especially if it's an international flight. If it's a domestic flight, well, you have time. But if it's an international flight, usually you don't have time. It's a 13-hour flight, whatever. But the good side to that is that the plane is usually much, much bigger. So you have much more space. And in between the rows, there's these kitchenettes where the flight attendants, prepare the food and stuff like that. So I asked, do you mind if I have just 2 minutes, 3 minutes to pray? And so she'll lead me into the kitchenette. She'll actually close the curtains and I pray normally. Actually on Western flights, so flights that are, Canadian Airlines, American Airlines, whatever, these ones, Virgin Airlines, these ones, Delta, Western flight airlines, I have never had a problem with them. I've had a problem on the Middle Eastern airline, which is kind of weird if you think about it. So when I was going to Lebanon, they told us we can't pray, which is weird. We ended up praying anyway. But Middle Eastern airline, we had a problem. When it comes to these ones that we usually take, no, they were just fine. You ask the flight attendant, tell her I need to pray. Is there a place? She will give you the kitchenette, and you're fine.
I think another part to that question is when it comes to direction, how would you know the direction on an airplane? How the direction you should pray facing the Qibla? So
there's actually apps for this. There's apps. There's an app that I actually use called Halal Travel or something like that. Halal Trip, I don't know. But it's very useful. What it does is it gives you the Qibla on your specific flight. You put the flight number, where you took off from and where you're arriving to. And I believe you have to put the flight number as well, or it will give you the flight number. And it will actually show you a picture of a plane. And it will show you on the plane, the Qibla, on the actual plane, where you have to face if you're in the plane, where you'd face in the Qibla or in the plane as Qibla. And it will also tell you the time of Salat, every Salat, the time in the place that you were in the air at the moment, and also relative to the time of the place that you left from. So let's say I left from Canada, okay? And while I was in the air in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, it was 3 p.m. in Canada, or 1 p.m. in Canada, 1 p.m. in Canada, okay? In the Atlantic Ocean, it's a different time, okay, altogether. It will give me the start of Salat al-Maghrib. It will give me the time of Salat al-Maghrib if I was looking at my watch and it was still according to Canadian time, even though I'm in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and the time is different. You see what I'm saying? So it just makes it easier for somebody that is in a plane to pray and to do their wajibat and to know exactly when Salat al-Subh, Salat al-Maghrib, all of these different salawat, what time they begin and what time they end. It's a very good app. Download it if you're traveling.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask one last question because I know you have another lecture to get to. So somebody is asking, why should someone do taqleed?
Oh, that's a long question. I don't think I'm going to have the full time to answer that. Maybe I'll have. Actually, we have a lecture tomorrow. Tomorrow is our last lecture, May 9th. So I'll dedicate an entire lecture on that, inshallah ta'ala. I'll answer that question in a whole lecture. Ba'awnillah ta'ala tomorrow.
Okay.
Although I can give a simple answer, but I want to delve into this one.
Okay. All right. Then I think we'll leave all the questions that are left behind for tomorrow. If you have any questions, feel free to email at hussainyouth@gmail.com, and then we'll make sure to have those ready for tomorrow. Thank you, Sheikh Ahmad Bazzi, for enlightening us, and thank you to everyone for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube, and finally, a reminder to join our live stream session at 6:40 p.m. Tomorrow with Dua Iftitah. And with that, we look forward to seeing you all at tomorrow's session, which will be our last session for the month of Ramadan. Thank you, everyone, and wassalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.